Oh yeah, everyone gets that pop-up message.
Yeah, I see that. All right.
All right, you should be good to go.
Okay, great, thanks. Oh, we have people just starting to join us. So why don't we stay off the record for a minute and we'll just give people a chance to connect. So for the recording here and the webcasting and everything, just want to mention this is 5ES 111, the Strategic Energy Assessment for January 2020 through December 31st, 2028. This is just off the record before we get started. So let's see if we have anyone else joining us.
That's why I put my hand up here.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Thanks. All right, well, let's get started then. We'll get on the record. So welcome everyone to the hearing in docket 5ES 111, the Strategic Energy Assessment for January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2028. This is Mike Newmark, Administrative Law Judge with PSC. We have commission staff and some utility representatives connected at this point. We are going to press ahead with the hearing scheduled for 10. It looks like we have people will be joining us along the way, but let's get this started. So we're here today for the public hearing to take comments on the strategic energy assessment. And in our notice, we have allowed up until August 30th to receive comments in writing, and that's by US mail or through the commission's website. Did want to mention that the live links in the notice, if you have a live version of that document, you're not going to be able to use those links because they're truncated. But the QR codes do work. So just so you know, there's also, you can always go to our homepage and find the public comment page through there. And we do have on our notice the contact for our case coordinator in case you have questions. Otherwise, we can get started. So what we've done here today is the commission has issued the draft strategic energy assessment, and I'm going to display that on the screen. So it was on June 21st, the memo and cover letter and the draft came out, and it requested public comments on the draft, kind of duplicating what's in the notice as well. So we also have that to go by. At this point, we've received one comment from the public, I believe. I haven't checked whether utilities have filed, in what form they filed yet, but we can still accept those comments until August 30th. But I think we have all we need to do on the screen here. So I'm going to turn off the screen share and allow you to see everyone. Okay, there we go. So as our typical process in this case, we do ask commission staff just to give us a brief review of the SEA. Nothing too detailed, but we have just a brief statement about that, and then we'll open up the hearing to people who have joined us to make a comment. So we have Joe Fontaine here from the commission. So I'm just going to swear you in and then have you give your comments. So raise your right hand. And do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. So go ahead.
Okay, I'm Joe Fontaine. I'm an energy policy advisor at the commission, and I was the case coordinator for the SEA. I'll provide a brief overview of the key findings from the draft report that was approved by the commission in June. The SEA assesses Wisconsin's electric system in the context of 4 primary goals maintained by the commission and by electric providers: adequate electric supply that maintains enough total power to meet customer demand, reliable electric.
I'm sorry, maintains enough. I couldn't, something got garbled. Maintains enough.
Maintains enough total power to meet customer demand. Reliable electric supply that provides consistent services and avoids outages. Affordable electric service that offers adequate and reliable electricity at the lowest feasible costs for customers, and environmentally responsible services that minimize the negative effects of electric generation on the environment. To provide adequate service, Wisconsin electric providers must be able to meet customer demand during peak periods when demand levels are highest. Based on the data collected for this report in November 2021, providers projected an increase in peak demand of 3.5% between 2021 and 2022 as customer demand rebounds after the initial impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, before returning to limited annual demand growth from 2023 through 2028. Wisconsin providers confirmed that they have sufficient electric generation capacity to meet these peak demand levels. However, it should be noted that the draft SEA was completed before the recent announcements from several utilities of delays in solar plant construction and coal plant retirements. We have requested and received additional information from utilities on the impacts of those announcements, and will include those updates in the final SEA this fall. Reliability information reported to the Commission found that in 2020, the average customer of the state's 5 largest utilities experienced less than 1 outage per year, with an average duration of approximately 3 hours. Fallen branches and trees and equipment failures were the most frequently reported causes of outages. The mix of generation sources used to meet customer demand has been evolving in recent years. Share of energy produced by coal decreased from 54% in 2015 to 35% in 2020. Over the same period, the share of energy produced by natural gas increased from 19% to 33%, wind resources from 6% to 10%, and solar resources from 0.1% to 0.5%. These changes are projected to continue throughout the SEA's analysis period, which runs to 2028. Wisconsin electric providers report plans to retire 3,300 megawatts of capacity, including 2,800 megawatts associated with retirement of 3 of the 7 utility-scale coal facilities currently operating in Wisconsin. Providers also reported plans to add 2,500 megawatts of solar energy in its place, along with smaller amounts of natural gas, wind, and battery energy storage capacity. If all retirements and additions are implemented as planned, coal would further decline from 35% of generation in 2020 to 22% in 2028. Natural gas would increase from 33% to 36%. Wind would increase from 10% to 13%, and solar resources would increase from 0.5% to 6.5%. One factor in this transition has been efforts to pursue environmental responsibility through reductions of carbon dioxide or CO2 emissions. Governor Evers and each of Wisconsin's 5 largest electric providers have established goals to achieve 100% reductions in CO2 emissions from electricity production by 2050. Providers reported CO2 emissions of 40% in 2020, which would increase to 45% by 2028 if all reductions are implemented as planned. The Commission opened a roadmap to zero carbon investigation in 2021 to more thoroughly review this transition toward emission reduction. That investigation has identified broad interest in achieving more transparency in the utility resource planning processes used to make generation decisions. To support more transparent resource planning through the SEA, the Commission requested more information from providers on their resource planning analysis associated with announced additions and retirements, and conducted independent staff analysis on statewide resource planning considerations. Electric providers confirmed that their resource planning accounted for the 4 goals of adequacy, reliability, affordability, and environmental responsibility. And some providers noted additional goals such as rate stability and resilience. Providers reported that their modeling analysis identified announced additions and retirements as the changes that supported emissions reductions, reliability, and resilience while limiting costs. More information on this analysis can be found in the SEA report and in the utility-specific filings available in the SEA docket. Commission staff conducted independent capacity expansion modeling under multiple future scenarios. In scenarios that assumed limited future CO2 emissions reductions, the model predominantly selected natural gas resources to meet future needs, apparently due to the model's view of the reliability and adequacy advantages of natural gas. By contrast, scenarios that assumed more aggressive CO2 reductions selected a larger share of renewable resources at levels more consistent with the solar and storage focused additions that are planned by providers. Modeling also indicated that achieving complete emissions reductions by 2035 could be achieved, but would require building more renewable facilities than needed to achieve adequacy at correspondingly higher costs in order to maintain reliability throughout the year. These planning considerations may change if cost profiles of existing technologies change or if future technological developments support the emergence of other cost competitive generation options. This SEA collected more information on the demand response programs used by providers to reduce energy demand during peak periods. While total demand response capacity has equaled 6 to 7% of total capacity in recent years, only a limited fraction was dispatched. Low dispatch rates reflect that demand response is only activated under certain conditions, such as regional calls for load reduction, which have not occurred in recent years. In addition to the utility scale renewable energy additions discussed earlier, electric providers have established programs for individual customers interested in procuring a larger share of their own energy use from renewables, including community solar programs and renewable rider programs. Wisconsin also had more than 11,500 customer-owned renewable generation installations operating in 2021, with capacity equal to nearly 2% of statewide capacity. Customer-owned solar installations account for the majority of recent growth. Solar installations increased nearly 40% between 2019 and 2020, accelerating beyond the annual growth rate of 20% observed over the previous decade. Wisconsin participates in MISO's regional transmission system, which operates an integrated electric grid across 15 states. Due to increased transmission line development and construction, transmission expenses have significantly increased since 2005 and accounted for an increasing proportion of providers' total operating expenses. A key factor in driving increases to date has been the implementation of a portfolio of large-scale projects under MISO's MVP portfolio. MISO is currently in the process of developing a second portfolio of large-scale projects under the Long Range Transmission Planning, or LRTP, initiative. MISO approved the first tranche of projects in July 2022 after this draft was released, and the final SEA will be updated to reflect this development. The Commission uses its regulatory authority over customer rates to support affordable electric supply. Total revenue requirements for Wisconsin's largest electric providers increased slightly less than 1% annually between 2011 and 2020, associated with continuing investments in generation resources and distribution infrastructure. National data shows that Wisconsin residential customers are charged higher average rates than Midwest or national averages, but also pay significantly less on their average monthly bills due to lower average levels of energy use. Low and moderate income residential customers often face challenges in paying their utility bills due to a higher energy burden, under which they must pay a larger percentage of their total income for service. To begin collecting more detailed and utility-specific information on energy burden, the Commission directed that large utilities provide detailed burden information in their annual reports. Initial filings in 2021 affirmed that energy burden varied throughout geographic regions of the state and provided useful baseline information. Further information on energy burden will be collected going forward. We'll be preparing the final version of the SEA for release this fall. The draft will be updated to address some of the updates I've already mentioned in the summary. We will also review and consider changes based on the feedback we receive in this hearing and in the written comments we receive before the comment deadline on August 30th. That concludes my comments. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks very much. Take a breath here. So I'm looking at our participant list, and we do have a number of people joining us from the public, including some people from Wisconsin OSCE and some representatives of Alliant Energy. So I'm just going to open up the hearing. If people do want to make a comment live today, just unmute your mic and let us know. Okay, not hearing anybody. So at this point, we have no live comments to take, but I think we've mentioned a number of times you can file a written comment until August 30th, either through the Commission's website or by US mail, and that information is both on the notice of hearing and the cover letter to the draft SEA. that we issued on June 21st. So I just want to go off the record for a second. I think there might have been a word in particular, tranche, I think you mentioned for the MISO projects. I want to make sure that the court reporter understood. Okay, yeah. I didn't hear it quite clearly, so I wanted to make sure you did.
Thank
All
you.
right, so let's get back on the record. And so anything else we need to do today? Doesn't look like it. Okay, great. So thanks very much for participating. And we'll look forward to seeing comments by August 30th and look forward to the final SEA coming thereafter. So thanks very much. We're adjourned.
Thank you.